Welcome to another film which we call an interview with, and this time I've got someone that you'll most probably all know. He's been writing in the Angling Times for nearly 20 years or over 20 years. He's written books, he's got a series of films out that you can subscribe to called Fishflix, and it's really nice to be able to welcome Martin Bowler. So Martin.
Thanks for having us. What a place, eh?
Welcome to the lake. So I always ask the first question. It's a very simple question. What's your earliest memory of going fishing?
I don't know technically whether it wasn't fishing with a rod and a reel. It would have been with a net, and just in the little streams collecting minnows, sticklebacks, things like that. And I could spend all day and not get bored just lifting up rocks. And then on from there, where I actually went fishing, it would have been my first fish, and still to this day I can remember that onion float, 2BB onion float, sinking away, Grand Union Canal, Grove Church, and there was a gudgeon on the end.
And how old were you, and where was this?
That was Grove Church near Leighton Buzzard, Grand Union Canal, and I was, oh God, actually rod and line 9, something like that, 9. So I'd cycled down there. I'd got a terrible, I think it was green fiberglass with a white plastic handle. It was an awful thing. And yeah, it was just that float going under. I can still see it. And you know, I've been really fortunate thereafter, but ranking in my top 10 of all time, that gudgeon would definitely sit in that top 10 and maybe number 1.
Really?
Yeah, because without it.
Yeah, where did you start? So where did it take you from there? Where did your fishing go from there over the next few years as a teenager?
I think sort of like as a kid, I was just fascinated by, I don't know what it was. There was just complete fascination with fish, any fish. And we would cycle down to the canal from my house. We also had some chalk pits near us. We would fish and basically go with my brother, get dropped off by my mum and dad if they could, but mainly cycling places, and then just building on that, buying the odd magazine, getting more and more involved until the dreaded word carp fishing grabbed me in the, I guess, mid-80s, maybe before then, because I'd moved on from gudgeon to carp in the canal. They weren't particularly big, but you'd fish with dog biscuits at dawn and on the weed. And I remember my first carp, I think I'd pinched my granddad's split cane rod, and all of a sudden it starts going up the tow path, being dragged, a bit of sweet corn on a gold hook. There's this like 2-pound common on the end, and it was quite a long journey, but that night I flew home. It was like that connection. So that led me to carp. Then of course we all look through things rose tinted glasses, but I think that period of carp fishing we weren't completely suffering with parboiled potatoes and no technology. We'd got a little bit. It was all really exciting.
Yeah, the big development of it came through the 70s, early 80s, and by the mid 80s there was sort of like an established way of fishing. There was baits coming out, wasn't there, and tackle. I mean,
and for a kid, just anything to beat, boilies and whatever. It's still very basic, but it was so exciting, and there weren't a lot of people doing it. And then I sort of like, I guess in my teenage years, I come from Bedfordshire, so I live in Wiltshire now, but I come from Bedfordshire. I was born in Luton. Lived all my childhood in Dunstable, and so the U's later on, but at that time all the brick pits, and a very famous one that's gone today but was famous for a time was Elstow. Yeah. So I went to Elstow, met the lads, the few weirdos like me that were my age and not going to nightclubs but sitting in bivvies, and that was really weird then. And yeah, just having a laugh. And Elstow, their carp were growing doubles into 20s, and almost so was my carp fishing growing. And then that developed into, which was always going to be the case with the family connection with John Wilson, was then I thought, I fancy a barbel, I fancy that. So I've constantly fished. I think there was one summer where nightclubbing or raving or something got in the way, but other than that, and that's understandable at 18, other than that, yeah, it's been a constant. And I went little fish, bigger, carp, and then went into, by early 20s really, starting to fish for everything. So that's my journey up to that point.
Now you mentioned John Wilson, and that's our connection, but your connection is blood, family.
Yep.
And obviously ours is from 1974 and the long association that we had with John. So we've got a lot in common, and many.
And this lake, it's
yes.
a joy to be, because I saw it so many times watching John's.
Yeah, and and he's dearly missed by both of us, and most probably everybody else. So did you go fishing with John much? And where is your relationship? What are you as?
So when I started appearing in the magazine regular, the Angling Times at the time was, they love a story. So it was Uncle John, just sat better. He's actually my second cousin.
Okay.
He's my dad's cousin, but my dad and him, if you look in a book, 50 Years of Fisherman, you'll see them on a pier, Brighton, Clacton, somewhere on a pier together. I think they used to go nightclubbing, and then after the nightclub go bream fishing. Bit weird, but my dad never really took to fishing. He would go, but I don't think it was really him. But my granddad and grandma, and in the same book you'll see Uncle Joe and Auntie Ethel, they used to take John to the Lee to fish. And I always remember the story, very few stories from my granddad, he died when I was quite young. I always remember being told that my granddad said that he didn't fish properly because he stalked. And unless you had a float on and you were trotting, it did not count.
Yeah, he did.
So John was already there creeping around with his cheese paste and stuff. So they would take him fishing.
Did he take you fishing? Did you?
Yeah, I came here I came over to his lakes in Norfolk as a kid on summer holidays with my brother and his son Lee. John's son Lee is the same age as me. So we would stay there and we would go fishing. And I can remember we were fishing the canal, and all of a sudden we're on Uncle John's lake, and the new lake was very new. Yes. There was no trees around it when I started going there. And we would hook these carp, and we were tying granny knots. So I remember John sitting us down and teaching us how to tie a blood knot, which I still remember today, him teaching us to tie a blood knot, and then fishing with his 10-pin controllers that he used to with his dog biscuit, and lift method with luncheon meat, and all of these lovely ways. And yeah, he showed us how to do that. We fished his lake, he would go to the shops, to his tackle shop in the day, and then we would be fishing there on the summer holiday. And at the time you don't realise how lucky you are.
Did you realise how famous he was and how well known he was even back then?
I guess so, to start with, because I remember going to his shop. My dad we went on holiday to Norfolk, and we went into the shop and saw him in the shop. I think that was the first memory I have of John.
Yeah, sure.
Bridlewell Alley, was it?
Yeah, something like that in the old town of Norwich.
And I suppose then he was a mailman, so he is an angler's mailman. And I think I'd seen the odd thing and knew there was an expert in the family. But John was a warm character, being family and two keen lads, me and my brother. It soon became Uncle John, because that's how I saw him. Yeah. Uncle John, and there was Uncle Dave as well.
Yes.
Dave Wilson, people wouldn't probably, I think, was keener than John. I've never seen a man so excited to go fishing.
Yeah, he loved his fishing, though, and that's how, we've told this story before, but that's how it was when Dave had his hairdressing shop, barber shop in Waltham Abbey in 1972-73. Dad and me used to go there to get our hair cut, and it was just by talking that we just then brought Fisher's Green along the Lee Valley, and Dave was saying, well, I love fishing, but my brother is John Wilson, who's got a tackle shop, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was about a year later that he actually wrote the very first piece about Wadley Valley Lakes.
Oh, right,
So yeah, and he'd come here, and he came here fishing even before we had bought it, when it was still leisure sports here, in the early 70s. And as soon as we'd bought it, he came here and actually doing exactly what you're doing here at the moment. He did a piece on the roach fishing.
I remember seeing, I think it was in his first series,
Yeah.
there's a roach bit, and there's a little bit, he turns up at a lake, and I can only presume it's here, and he's fishing with a 14-foot rod, struggling really, too deep, with a waggler, and he doesn't catch anything big, but he catches a few roach, and I presume that's it.
And obviously over the years he made quite a few of the fish.
Yeah, of course.
So we've had a fantastic association with him, and he saw him.
Of all, sadly, the people I've lost, I don't know why, but I find it the hardest to compute that John's gone, because he was such a character that how that just
he was
goes.
Yeah.
But I fished with him a couple of months before he passed away, and I was in Thailand at Jurassic, and he was the same as ever. He was competitive. We always used to have a match, so he'd call me Super Kid. Right, and he would love to beat Super Kid, he would say. So we would always have this match. He was competitive as always. He was playing an arapaima, he was still diving in the water, and he was the ultimate professional that I learned a lot of. He would come to make a film, or he'd be doing a magazine shoot, and he would always think of the camera angle. The priority is the film, not solely catching the fish. And he was the best professional at that, because a lot of people get sidetracked. They think to themselves, I've got to catch a bigger one.
Yeah.
And for a film, that's not, no. It's the setting, the scene and everything. And
John was still like that when I was with him on the last time. This will look good, this is a great angle, this is that. So right up to the end, he was loving it. And that gives me solace of John's part.
And luckily for us, he came here, he stayed with us for a couple of days here. That was in July of 2018. And we fished over on the other bank, on what we call the church bank, and he was doing his floater fishing again, caught a carp, and I filmed it, fortunately. And also it was the first time he'd seen my dad for about a year and a half, 2 years, because my dad became too old to actually travel to Thailand, because he went out there every year for a few months.
I know he saw you.
All the time. And I took him to see my dad in the care home. That they were really looking after him well, and they hugged each other and cried, and I thought that was really poignant, because they hadn't seen each other for most probably nearly 2 years, and I took a picture of that as well, because I knew that was going to be special, because my dad was very old and frail. But wow, did I get a shock the day that I was told and phoned up to say that John had died in the October or November of that year.
I was on the River Trent. I was fishing, of course. What else would I be doing? And I sat there in a daze, and I thought, I'll pack up. And then I actually thought, no, I'm just going to sit here tonight, because where would John want you to remember him? And I don't think I even fished. I think I just sat there by the river, and it was a shock. But of all the men I've met, he enjoyed his life.
Oh, he had a full life.
I mean,
in his books is only a fraction of his life.
I probably shouldn't say this, but I imagine John now to be, if I could visualise it, in a Roman orgy,
drinking wine
with a goblet
yeah.
and purple lips,
Yeah.
having a great time.
Yeah, and a fishing rod round the corner. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And he was, I don't know if the word's flamboyant, but he was bigger than...
Yeah, he was one of those characters, and that's what made his films so fantastic and so much fun. And still inspired people to this day. You know, I've put clips up on our YouTube channel of him talking about this place and everything else, and the comments still, all those years later, I miss John, great to hear his voice, fantastic to see him, that seems like yesterday. So his influence is still there, so that's really nice to know.
I don't think anyone's ever come
No.
close, and what John understood,
And going back to being professional, what he also understood, which most people miss, he was a big character, but how he fished was wonderful. So it wasn't just a bite alarm going, that's a definite. He would be there with bobbins in his cut down waders.
Yeah, he was always on the move.
Trying to get a bite.
Yeah, he was always on the move.
And there was jeopardy in every moment. When he went to strike, he could miss. Where modern films, there's no jeopardy. So that's like watching a film that's a guarantee.
Yeah.
With John, it was like the bobbin would go up. Would he miss it? Wouldn't he? And his methods, how he fished, how he loved everything, his knowledge of wildlife and all of that lot, all came. And I appreciate and realise how lucky I was to have time as a youngster growing up, and then a very close relationship with John through fishing, because we connected like that later on in life. And weirdly, which is a very rare event, not just one professional angler being in the family, two.
Yeah, and he must be looking down, looking very proud at you, Martin, what you're doing. And then going back to, so when did you take it on as a professional job? How did that come about?
Well, I sort of like got into big fish. I don't think you can underestimate being at the right time, right place. A lot of people make their name by being in the right area, because you need the venues. So as I was young, super keen and everything, the ooze was coming through. So I had the Reckle barbel to target. I had the giant perch of the ooze that were in their heyday. I had massive ruds, say at Elstow. So I started fishing, catching those, and then I don't know who, I think it was a local angling club, Dunstable Angling Club, asked me to do a talk.
Right.
And I did a talk, seemed to go okay. And then some magazines asked me to do monthly stuff. And then Leader, I must have been noticed, because then I had long hair and a perm, and like people, you need to stand out as well, don't you? I wasn't doing it consciously, I was doing it in my nightclub phase, my perm. But
highlights?
No, but I would sit there with the curlers in, and I caught some huge fish, and then so I was noticed then, because I was a lot different to a normal specimen hunter. I stood out, and Bob Church and Leader offered me a sponsorship, which was unknown really at the time. It was a long time ago. And dear old Bob, that I grew to love and fished with later on in life a lot. You could tell he wasn't really into business, he was into going fishing. So I went with Leader, and that's where it started. And then later on down the line, there was a series called The Specialists in Angling Times. There was 4 or 5 of us, and anyway, we all started doing this monthly column for us each. And like what normally happens, all the other anglers slowly fell by the wayside, because it's a commitment doing something even once a month. And then they came and said to me, look, would you like to do it weekly? And that was the big moment, really. The commitment was doing that weekly. And I thought, shall I go for it, shall I? And I had to try. So I started that over 20 years ago now, writing. And reasonably at the same time, Hugh Miles, who made Passion for Angling, probably the best ever, he was looking for a new project, and he had done a small DVD called In Time with Chris Yates. And being Angling Times, I approached him and said, look, we could all go fishing and do an article. They were up for it. I met Hugh then. He then, I would guess, saw something and pitched an idea to me called Catching the Impossible. So with Bernard Cribbins again, but Yatesy was in it as a guest. And we set off for 4 years trying to catch impossible sized fish, but with all like the beauty and everything. So for 4 years I learned how to work with Hugh, and
you know, again, so lucky, BAFTA award-winning guy, and I did learn a lot from Hugh. Hugh is a hard taskmaster, and probably like me, and I include me in this, not the most easiest person to always get along with. And that's not just you, that's me as well, but we made it work, and we worked together for 4 years. And Bernard Cribbins, how lucky, you know, to get to work with Bernard. And narration, at the time I wouldn't have known anything, but that's one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah.
So that was running, Angling Times was running, and I was doing, God, at my peak in writing, I was doing probably around 130 articles a year. So that's more than 2 a week.
Yeah.
So I was writing all over Europe, and I'd still take that today over social media.
Yeah.
But so I was, I guess, building my name, and learning my craft, and then sponsorships got bigger, and that was my journey. And then just really from that point diversifying books, DVDs, and until we are today with a subscription channel, and that's been sort of like the journey.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to Fishflix later. So basically then, with your, you talked earlier about your gudgeon maybe being your number one fish, and there was 9 others then. Where do you place all these fish in order? What do you think are your best fish and your best captures?
Do you know what? It's so hard because I've been so lucky that you have to have, it's not only about being good, because there's lots of very good anglers, lots of anglers better, right? But if you don't have that luck, and you need luck to catch a British record. Now I've had 3, 2 official, 1 unofficial. So I've had Crucian carp, barbel, and grass carp. So I guess they've got a slot in there. My first carp has ever, the fondness of that is still here today. I spent the best part of 15 years trying to catch a proper 20-pound plus salmon off the Y, and I mean proper. Salmon anglers, every salmon they catch is 20 pound, but he don't weigh 20 pound, trust me. But that took me a long time now. Sea fishing, I've had a 104 pound conger eel, and there's been probably less than 50 conger eels ever caught over 100 pounds. So in the sea cat, I'd have to put that in. Catching the impossible, the most probably famous bit of catching the impossible is I taught myself how to fish the flat float, a Claruso flat float on the pole, and I catch a 5/4 perch. I don't know, massive pike, massive. I could just, you know, I don't want to. It sounds awful because it's like you're just recounting. I'm great, I'm wonderful. I'm not. I've been very lucky, but the truth is, where the hell do I? How do I pick a 10? It's so hard. But all I would say, I'd emphasise, is I wouldn't. It never got any better than my first fish and my first carp. The buzz never got any better. And when people in the modern era want to instantly go 20 pound, 30, 40 pound, I understand it, but they are missing
The journey.
the greatest moments in their angling career. And I think I can say that, having caught British records, and they do not compare to those 2 fish.
So, where you've written books?
Yeah, I think that was a natural part of. We did Catching the Impossible book. I did that joint with Hugh Miles to go with the TV series that ended up on Channel 4. But early on in the morning, and do you know what? I walked downstairs in my dressing gown. I clicked it on, saw the titles come up, turned it off, and walked off. And I have never watched it. Right, never. I couldn't think of anything more horrific. And so we did Catching Impossible. I did a book called A Fish for All Seasons, and then I did a diary book, Totally Immersed. And if I was being honest, what happened was sales, every book halved.
because the book market was dying. I think my last book was my best book. I put so much effort. I did a year diary, and then I went back and shot it all underwater. Right, it spent ages on underwater images to go with it, and you go, in the end, you're almost feeling like you're begging people to buy your book. And I thought, now books are done. But I think it was a natural journey, and I may still, at the very
I was going to
end-
say there must be a book at the end of all your experiences and your fishing
How do you know when
stories.
it's the end? That's a bit.
Yeah,
Like,
well, let's all
I've
write.
got 6 weeks to live.
Yeah, we'll write it before the end, put it that way. But obviously, also your fishing's taken you around the world, and I know last week you're in Finland. So
Yeah.
where else have you been, and what else have you done?
Not to the extreme of John.
No, well, that was extreme. He was on a ship.
John was extreme, but the reality is, Angling Times never really wanted foreign articles because the readership ain't really interested. No one particularly wants foreign films, not from the UK. They'd prefer, if you gave them, I don't know, a taimen or a roach, they're going to want a roach film. So I've always realised that, and so limited its back slightly for work, because your sponsors don't even want you. They would rather you catch UK fish. But I got involved, I suppose the biggest journey I had was in Thailand. And I would have never for a million years have ever thought, why would I get involved in Thailand? When in 2013, John went off to Thailand, and I went, see you, John, I think you're nuts, but see ya, that's it, won't see John again. And a couple of years later, he contacted me and said, will you come and do a feature for a resort that my friends have got, a Jurassic. He managed to convince me and my wife, we went there, and somehow, long story, we ended up with 2 of the villas and involved, and there was bowlers Thai fishing. That changed slightly, but still today, if someone books up Jurassic, they ring my wife up.
You're the travel agent.
We're the travel agent. My wife arranges everything. Every booking goes through my wife. So up till the car waiting in Bangkok. So she's Jurassic Joe. She wouldn't want to be that, I can tell you. And I guess that's John's influence. But early on, well before then, I suppose the one that stands out was I was on the first ever commercial trip to Lake Nasser.
Right.
Me, my brother, a mate, and there's a guy, John Roberts, isn't it? The Terminal Tackle?
Don't know.
Roberts?
Maybe.
I'm sure it was John Roberts Tackle. Anyway, he was there, and it was when Lake Nasser first opened up. I don't know where I'd seen it, Angling Times or anything, and we just went, I was probably 21. Just went, hey, let's go there. And man, I mean, that was, it hadn't been raped and pillaged then. It's ruined now. So these Nile perch, you'd walk on the cliff face and look out. And massive Nile perch, they're all just laying under the surface. And you'd cast your lure and it'd sit there with the ripples, and you'd be terrified to turn the handle. They'd all swing and look exactly like normal perch, all the dorsals went, and you, fuck. And I actually went to Nasser before John.
Okay. All
I
right.
fished Nasser quite a few years before John. Went there twice. So I guess that was the earliest sort of big adventure. And then
Well, you've just come back from Finland.
Yeah, Finland
Oh,
gives me...
you've gone north. Most people go the other way to catch carp.
Everyone goes left. I go right.
I've been very fortunate that I lived in Sweden for a little bit, so I've caught carp in Sweden. So what made you go north? Which is now it's opening up around the world, but
Well,
even so,
I
it's
always
different.
like to be awkward.
You know,
That's always good. And I got a friend there, Henrik, and he had mentioned there were carp in these lakes all around Helsinki, and it's the land of 1,000 lakes, isn't it? And there's many more than 1,000. And then from chatting to him, he said that there's a Swedish strain, Anaboda, that's a fish farm in Sweden. And a lot of the Swedish carp are stunning, scaly, beautiful fish. And
Very dark.
yeah, from these records, they had stocked, I presume for food, a lot of the glacial lakes with carp, and then just put them in there, and then you've got all these lakes. There's probably a handful of carp anglers in Finland, but you've got all these lakes, and no one's fishing for them. Oh man, if you can get your mind, which I can easily get my mind, that a 30 pounder is massive, but I grew up in a time where 30 pounder was massive, so I have no issue with that. It's like a chocolate box. Anyone that comes up, you don't know what it's going to look like, but they all seem to look incredible. And it's hard fishing because there's not that many in there, because they've had to survive under a metre of ice for months on end. Hey, when that bite alarm goes, the buzz takes me back to the 80s.
To the early years.
And I tell you what I did, I had this common with this this latest trip with this big purpley red head. And I did what I always used to do. I netted, no torch on, netted it, and I'm just on the end of this jetty, and I just take a second and think, what's it going to be? What is it going to be? Because I don't know, there's no names, there's nothing, I haven't got a clue. And I pulled a net, put on the torch, and that is the moment you've done all the effort to get there for. So yeah, everyone wants to go left, but everyone wants to follow the crowd. And sometimes, if you can be bothered,
it's good to go the other way.
I'll do my own thing. And so, I'm certainly not the first man to fish Finland, but it's not a very popular destination. I would swap in a heartbeat UK carp fishing for Finnish carp fishing immediately.
Well, it'd be like the old style, finding lakes that have got fish in there, and it's not so commercialised and everything else.
The equivalent would be me having the whole of the Cotswold Water Park to myself. That's what it's the equivalent. And I would do a lot more carp fishing, because as I've got older, I love carp fishing. My big fish started with carp, and still to this day I enjoy it. But I find, maybe it's getting old, maybe, but it's just, I feel we're tipping over the edge of angling and turning into catching. And I'm an angler. Like, it's just too ruthless now. What is the ultimate aim of all of this? To, like, open up your van door and every carp jumps out of the water into your landing net because you've got a rig and a bait that they can't resist. Well, I struggle with it because I've always tried to help people, but I think we're almost, in my mind, it's like we're going on a pheasant shoot, but the craft, the skill of shooting is irrelevant. Let's just all turn up with bazookas and freaking submachine guns, because all that counts is how many. And I think that's why I've maybe drifted away from modern carping, and in a way I've come more full circle. I'm more drawn to peacock quill, luncheon meat, as John taught me, and I'd rather catch a 20 pounder like that and be home for tea than sitting there in a load of mud, but with drones flying out on bait boats and cameras going down. And I can appreciate people will listen to this and go, what a frigging miserable old git, but that's my journey and that's how I feel.
And so what made you do, I mean, great play on words, fishflix? I mean, how did that develop? What was your thinking behind that? I mean, they're amazing films. I mean, it really is going back to the old way that the fishing films were made, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm going to be heavily influenced by Hugh Miles and John Wilson. You could probably say the two greatest videographers. John wasn't, but he crafted everything. He was pointing the camera. So I was going to be influenced by that. But where it really came from was for me, I don't like the new world with influencer, with craziness, with red arrows pointed at you, with silliness, stupid. Now, if John was sitting here today, he would feel exactly the same.
Yeah,
Maybe
definitely.
I'm being an old fart, but I'm happy to be that. I
I think fishing is nice enough and good enough to stand on its own. But I also realise that if you're a younger person, your gateway into the sport now isn't being good. It's getting followers on YouTube. I can't play that game. I don't want to play that game, because if I go on, if the weird thing is, if the films that we make on Fishflix went on YouTube, there'd be a failure, because we would get maybe critical acclaim, but there wouldn't be enough, because most people don't want what I want. They want clickbait. They want silliness, right? That's the reality of it. So the only way, Lawrence, who I work with, who's passionate about wildlife, we've lost him at the moment.
Yeah,
You've sent him off Kingfisher.
Yeah, I've sent him off to film Kingfishers.
The only way
We could make the films that we wanted to make is make it a subscription service, and although the majority will never ever get to see our films because they won't pay for it, we can make films like we want to, which are like in John Wilson or Passion for Angling ilk. So it was out of the desire of wanting to make films like that. I used to sell DVDs. I've made various DVDs and we've sold them over the years, but that market fell. So the only thing left for someone like me was a subscription service, and fortunately, touch wood, at the moment there seems to be a minority, and it is a minority, willing to pay a couple of quid a week to get regular content, serious content like I want it to be. I
think, looking at it, I feel sometimes nowadays people have forgotten the reason to go fishing. I think they go, like I say, the modern day carp angler especially wants to go for instant glorification. It's social clicks, it's instant gratification, and it has to be big fish. And I can remember, like you, when we used to fish in the 70s and the 80s, it was the enjoyment of getting up in the morning, going outside, being with nature, and hopefully catching a fish along the way. And if you did, then you've enjoyed yourself immensely.
I don't think it's getting the bite that is the most important thing. I think it's likes and follows, because when I see kids normally, they ask me how to be an influencer, not how to get a barbel bite. And I think that's a shame. I do really think that's a shame. But is it just the world we're in? I'm sure if we were in the surfing world, in a BMX world, in the same thing is happening. So I am very conscious. My views are shaped by my life and how the kids are coming through. Is it a bad thing that they take up fishing because they want to fill their Instagram feed? It's a hard one. But that is a drive these days. To underestimate social media, I think would be wrong. But I think just the pure passion. I wonder how many kids actually go fishing for fishing's sake and not fishing and an ulterior motive.
Yeah, I've said many times that even people here, if they could, they can't, because we have a bit of a publicity ban on here unless it's through the Facebook page or whatever. But I just really do think that people catch carp, that the carp is up on social media before the landing net is dry. And I think that's...
But then would you be doing that, or would I be doing that if I was 18 now?
Well,
it's
totally. We come from a different background and a different age, without a doubt. You know,
things have changed, but there is no doubt for me to be successful in media now. Like, I work for Angling Times. When I started, it was massive. It was everything. You have the centre pages, you were the king. Right now, the reality is, sponsors don't care. Right? There's not many readers, and it struggles a lot. That's the reality. I'm not. That's what's happened to print. The big fish, Angling Times, Anglers Mails. That's gone. All the monthlies gone. So that media's gone. You can't sell DVDs anymore. TV. The days of Passion for Angling and Go Fishing, that's long gone, because all that happens now is tackle firms make the films and then give them, in essence, to the TV companies if they would take them, because they know it's good for their products. You are never going to go and see a commissioning guy and he's going to hand an angler £500,000 and clear off for 4 years like Passion for Angling was and make a lovely series. That's not happening anymore. YouTube, as far as I can see, the only way you can really make a go of it is you have to do more vloggy style. There's a reason why all the people trying to make it in fishing, right, have crazy headlines and I caught a massive pike in the ditch, and when it actually is, it's like tiny pike and it was not in a ditch. But there's a reason why they're all doing that, because that's the only way to make it. So if John Wilson was here today, the only way he could make it is do something like Fishflix. And I'm sort of like, more, not for me, but a little bit sad for Lawrence, because his work won't be seen by many people.
Well, I'm sure slowly. So what is the plan for Fishflix over the next few years? Where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Retire. No. We started this journey, we had no idea. Carp fishing, you know they'll spend some money. Outside carp fishing, it is so hard. Media outside carp fishing, to get people to pay money. Even if it's a little tiny bit, it's so hard. So we've been quite surprised. We've grown. We've hit all our markers. I would like to think we keep growing a bit more, but I'm not stupid. There is a ceiling. Like books, there is a ceiling. It won't keep growing, but I would deem it a success if at the end of the day, and mine slows down a bit, Lawrence is younger and he's got a proper business that supports making beautiful angling films that can include nature, can have nice narration, can have classical music. You can hold on views longer than a split second. If you notice, a lot of modern filming is chop, 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 put a load of music on it, and actually if you look at all the scenes, the image is crap. But it feels good because you've got it to the music, where like Hugh Miles, Passion for Angling, he could hold for a few seconds because actually he'd sculpted that scene. It was beautiful. He could have this, he would wait for the sun rising. He would wait 4 days. I've been with him, we've waited 4 days, and I appreciate you can't do that. But, and maybe get those moments, like we come here to catch some roach. But when we walked around, I wasn't probably looking so much where are the biggest roach, where's the nicest scene, you know, and that's what John and Hugh would have done. Where's Lawrence gone now? He's looking for kingfish. and I would hope we would create a business where that side of our sport can be celebrated, and then there is a place as well for influencers, for all of that. I don't want this interview to come over like I dislike all. They work in the environment they are given, but I don't want to play in that arena. So we like going to Finland. They all go left, I'll go right.
Well, all I can say, Martin, is from those early days when you caught that first gudgeon, to where you are now making wonderful films with Fishflix, and I hope you have a great time here while you're here. It's been a real pleasure getting to know about the man behind the articles, the filming and everything else. And to be very honest, I knew John really well. I think he'll be very, very proud of you. So it's been a real pleasure having you here, and it's been great. So thank you very much for this interview.
Well, kind of you to say, and thanks ever so much for having us. A wonderful place. I know why John loved it.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Cheers.